I walked into Robert's apartment last Tuesday and found him sitting on the edge of his bed, fully dressed at 2 in the afternoon, staring at his hands. He looked up when I came in. "I can't open the pickle jar anymore," he said. "I think something's really wrong." Robert is 72. He's a retired electrician who still volunteers at Habitat for Humanity twice a week. He walks 3 miles every morning. His doctor just told him he has the heart of a 50-year-old. But he couldn't open a pickle jar, and he was convinced he was dying. I sat down next to him. "When's the last time you tried to open one?" I asked. "Maybe 5 years ago," he said. Robert isn't sick. Robert is 72, and nobody told him what 72 is supposed to feel like. I've been doing this work for 15 years, and I've watched this scene play out in dozens of variations. A vibrant, healthy senior notices something different about their body and spirals into panic because they don't know if it's normal aging or the beginning of something serious. They stop doing things they love. They start scanning every ache for catastrophe. Some of them call 911 3 times in a month because they're terrified. The irony? Most of them are healthier than they think. They just don't know what healthy aging actually looks like. Here's what happens when nobody explains the difference. Robert stopped volunteering. He canceled his morning walks because he figured if he couldn't open a jar, something must be failing and he shouldn't push himself. Within 2 weeks, his daughter called me in a panic because her dad, who'd been thriving, suddenly seemed depressed and withdrawn, all because of a pickle jar. This is the cost of confusion. When you don't know what's normal for your age, every change becomes a potential crisis. You either panic and restrict your life, or you dismiss everything as just getting old and miss the signs that actually matter. I've seen both, and both are dangerous. The medical system doesn't help. Your doctor runs tests, tells you everything's fine, and sends you home. But fine doesn't answer the question you're actually asking, which is this normal for 68? For 75? For 82? Should I expect this to continue? Is there anything I should do about it? I've sat in countless doctors' offices with my clients, and I've noticed this pattern. The doctor rules out disease, which is their job, but they don't educate about normal aging. You leave relieved that you're not sick, but still confused about what's happening to your body. That confusion follows you home. It sits with you at 2 in the morning when you wake up to use the bathroom for the 3rd time and wonder if your kidneys are failing. Let me tell you about 3 things that send more healthy seniors into panic mode than anything else I've seen, and why every single one of them is completely normal after 60. I cared for a woman I'll call Patricia. I use a different name to protect her privacy. She was 68 when she called me in tears one morning. She'd been waking up 2 or 3 times every night to urinate, and she was convinced it was either kidney failure or diabetes. She'd already scheduled appointments with 2 specialists and spent 3 nights researching kidney disease online. I asked her about her water intake. She told me she was drinking 64 ounces of water after 6 in the evening because an influencer she followed said hydration is anti-aging. I asked when this started. She said about 6 weeks ago, right when the nighttime bathroom trips began. We went to her appointments anyway. The test came back completely normal. Her kidneys were fine, no diabetes. The specialist told her she was healthy and sent her home. But he never explained what was actually happening, so Patricia still felt anxious. She was relieved she wasn't dying, but she didn't understand why her body had changed. Here's what nobody told her. After 60, your bladder capacity naturally decreases. Not because something's wrong, but because the tissues change. The bladder wall becomes less elastic. You can't hold as much as you used to. This happens to everyone. It's not disease. It's physiology. But here's the part that makes it worse. Patricia was flooding her system with water right before bed, which meant her already smaller capacity bladder was getting full faster and more often throughout the night. Once she adjusted her water timing, drinking most of her fluids before 4 in the afternoon and just sipping in the evening, she started sleeping through the night again. The panic cost her 6 weeks of sleep, 2 expensive specialist appointments, and hours of anxiety, all because nobody explained that bladder capacity changes with age, and that's okay. I've watched this same pattern with grip strength. After 50, you lose about 1% of your grip strength every year. It's gradual, so you don't notice it until you try to do something you haven't done in a while, like open a stubborn jar. Then suddenly you can't, and it feels catastrophic because you remember when you could do it easily. Robert's hands are fine. His strength is exactly where it should be for 72. He's not sick. He's aging normally. But nobody ever told him that normal aging means some things get harder, and that doesn't mean your body is betraying you. The third one is temperature regulation. I've seen so many fights between couples over the thermostat, and almost all of them come down to this. After 60, you feel cold more easily. Your body composition changes. You have less muscle mass, which generates heat. Your circulation isn't as robust. Your skin gets thinner. All of this means you need an extra layer when you didn't before. I cared for a man I'll call James. He was 76 and constantly cold, wearing sweaters in July, fighting with his wife about keeping the house at 78 degrees. She was miserable. He was miserable. They were both convinced something was wrong with him. Here's what I noticed that nobody else connected. James had lost 15 pounds over 6 months on a doctor-approved diet. That's wonderful for his health. But it also meant he'd lost insulation. Less body fat means less temperature regulation. His feeling cold wasn't illness. It was success. His body composition had changed in exactly the way his doctor wanted it to. Once I explained this, James added a layer instead of turning up the heat. The marital conflict stopped. He understood that feeling colder than he used to wasn't a symptom of decline. It was a side effect of getting healthier. These three things, nighttime urination, grip strength, and temperature sensitivity, they're completely normal after 60. But I've rushed clients to specialists, watched them spiral into health anxiety, and seen relationships strain, all because nobody explained what normal aging actually involves. But here's what worries me more than the panic. I've also watched seniors ignore real warning signs because they thought everything was just normal aging. So how do you know the difference? This is where it gets tricky, and this is where I've seen people make dangerous mistakes in both directions. I've had clients dismiss chest pain as heartburn, and clients call an ambulance because they forgot where they parked. Both responses came from the same place, not knowing what requires attention and what doesn't. Let me give you 5 signs that actually need medical attention, and I want you to remember these because they're different from the gradual changes we've been talking about. First, sudden changes. If something happens quickly, over days instead of months or years, that's worth checking. Patricia's nighttime bathroom trips developed over 6 weeks as she changed her habits. That's gradual. But if you suddenly start having trouble breathing when you climb stairs and this developed over 3 days, call your doctor. Sudden is the key word. Second, one-sided symptoms. If your left leg swells but your right leg is fine, that's not normal aging. If you have weakness on one side of your body, that needs immediate attention. Normal aging is symmetrical. Disease often isn't. Third, changes that interfere with safety. Can you still walk without losing your balance? Can you stand up from a chair without help? Can you see well enough to drive safely? If the answer to any of these changes from yes to no, that requires evaluation. Not panic, but attention. Fourth, persistent pain that wakes you up at night. Aches and stiffness in the morning, normal after 60. Pain that's severe enough to wake you from sleep, that's your body telling you something needs to be addressed. I'm not talking about waking up to use the bathroom and noticing your knee is sore. I'm talking about pain that pulls you out of sleep. Fifth, confusion or disorientation beyond forgetting names or words. And this is the one that scares people most, so I'm going to spend more time here. I cared for a woman I'll call Helen. She was 81. One afternoon, she ran into her neighbor at the grocery store, someone she'd known for 20 years, and she couldn't remember the woman's name. It was right there, on the tip of her tongue, but it wouldn't come. She smiled and chatted and got through the conversation, but the whole time she was panicking inside. By the time she got home, Helen was convinced she had Alzheimer's. She stopped going to her book club. She canceled coffee with friends. She started withdrawing because she was terrified of forgetting someone else's name and being exposed as someone whose mind was going. When I arrived for my shift, she told me what happened. I asked her some questions. Could she remember the neighbor's dog's name? Yes, immediately. Could she remember what they'd talked about last week? Yes, in detail. Could she remember the neighbor's grandchildren's names? Yes, all three of them. She could remember everything except the proper name. And that, I explained to her, is completely normal age-related recall delay. It's not dementia, it's not Alzheimer's. It's your brain taking a little longer to retrieve specific information, especially names and words. The information is there. The pathway to it is just slower. Here's the difference, and this is critical. Helen could remember everything about her neighbor except the name. Someone with dementia might not recognize the neighbor at all. They might forget the conversation moments after it happens. They might get confused about where they are or what year it is. They might have personality changes, becoming suspicious or angry in ways that aren't like them. Forgetting a name while remembering everything else about the person, that's normal aging. Not recognizing your own daughter? That's not. Losing your keys? Normal. Not knowing what keys are for? Not normal. Helen learned this distinction, and it changed everything. She rejoined her book club. She started socializing again. She still forgets names sometimes, and now she just says, "I know you. I'm just blanking on your name right now." People laugh and remind her. Life goes on. The fear of memory loss is so powerful that it can rob you of years of good life. I've watched it happen. Healthy seniors withdrawing from everything they love because they're catastrophizing every forgotten word. Meanwhile, the forgetting they're worried about is completely normal for their age. If you're sitting there wondering whether what you're experiencing is normal or not, here's what I want you to do. First, learn your personal baseline. Track what's normal for you at your current age. I'm not talking about complicated journals or apps. Just pay attention for 2 weeks. How many times do you typically wake up at night? What's your energy level in the afternoon? How do your knees feel when you stand up in the morning? This is your normal at your age right now. Then compare to 6 months ago, not to when you were 40. That's the mistake Robert made. He was comparing his grip strength at 72 to what he remembered from his 50s. Of course it's different. But is it different from 6 months ago? If yes, mention it to your doctor. If no, this is just what 72 feels like, and that's okay. Second, ask your doctor the magic question. When they tell you everything looks fine, say this. Is this normal for my age, or does this need investigation? If it's normal, follow up with, what should I expect going forward? Most doctors will gladly educate you if you ask directly. They're focused on ruling out disease, but they know what normal aging looks like too. You just have to ask. Third, and this one changed Robert's life. Find one healthy person about 10 years older than you and have a real conversation with them. Not internet research, not medical websites, an actual person who's living the decade ahead of you. Ask them what changed between your age and theirs. What surprised them? What do they wish they'd known? After our conversation about the pickle jar, Robert called his buddy Tom, who's 82 and still plays tennis twice a week. Tom laughed and showed him his collection of adaptive tools, jar openers, grabbers, shoehorns with long handles. "Welcome to the club," Tom said. "We're not broken. We're just using different equipment." That conversation did more for Robert than any doctor's appointment could have. He saw what healthy 82 looks like. He understood that needing a jar opener at 72 didn't mean he was declining. It meant he was aging normally, and normal aging sometimes requires different tools. Robert's doctor visits dropped from monthly to quarterly. His anxiety lifted. He went back to volunteering. He started his morning walks again. He bought a set of adaptive tools and donated them to his senior center. Last I heard, he's teaching a workshop on aging without panic. Fourth, stop comparing yourself to your 40-year-old self. I know this is hard. I know you remember when you could do things easily that are harder now. But that person is gone, and I'm sorry. But grieving them while they're standing in your way isn't helping you. The question isn't, can I do what I did at 40? The question is, am I healthy and functional for 70? Those are completely different questions with completely different answers. You might not be able to open a stubborn jar anymore, but can you walk 3 miles? Can you volunteer? Can you live independently? Can you do the things that matter to you? If yes, you're winning. You're healthy for your age. That's the metric that matters. Fifth, know when to actually worry. Go back to those 5 signs I gave you earlier: sudden changes, one-sided symptoms, safety concerns, pain that wakes you up, and confusion beyond normal recall delay. If you notice any of those, call your doctor. Don't dismiss them as just getting old. But also, don't panic about gradual changes that affect both sides of your body equally, and don't interfere with your safety or function. You're learning to calibrate. You're learning the difference between normal aging and actual problems. This takes time. You're going to get it wrong sometimes. You might call the doctor about something that turns out to be normal, and that's okay. Better to check and be reassured than to ignore something that matters. But most of you watching this, most of you are healthier than you think. You're experiencing normal changes that nobody warned you about, and you're interpreting them as signs of decline because you don't have a reference point for what healthy aging actually looks like. I want to tell you what I told Robert when he was sitting on his bed, staring at his hands, convinced he was dying. Your body is doing exactly what it's supposed to do at your age. Some things are harder. Some things take longer. Some things require different approaches or tools. That's not failure. That's adaptation. That's you, still here, still living, still capable, just in a different form than you were decades ago. If you're watching this for a parent or loved one, I want to say something to you too. The best thing you can do is help them understand what normal looks like at their age. Don't dismiss their concerns, but also don't feed their catastrophizing. If your mom tells you she can't open jars anymore, don't rush her to the doctor. Buy her a jar opener. If your dad says he's cold all the time, get him a warm cardigan before you panic about circulation problems. Help them find those reference points. Introduce them to healthy people in their age group. Normalize the changes that are normal. Take the real concerns seriously. You're learning to calibrate too. Last week, I saw Robert at the senior center. He was teaching a workshop on adaptive tools for aging. He held up a jar opener and said, "This cost me $7 and gave me back my peace of mind." Then he opened a pickle jar in 3 seconds flat, handed it around and said, "Who else has been sitting on their bed, staring at their hands, thinking they're dying because they can't do something they did when they were 50? 12 hands went up. He smiled. "Good, we're going to fix that today." I stood in the back and watched him teach. Same man who'd been convinced something was really wrong. Same hands that couldn't open that jar, but completely different relationship to his own body. He'd stopped comparing himself to who he used to be and started living as who he is now. 72, healthy, capable, just using different equipment. That's what I want for you. I want you to know what normal feels like at your age so you can stop scanning every change for catastrophe. I want you to recognize real warning signs when they appear, and I want you to live fully in the body you have now, not the one you remember from decades ago. You're not broken. You're not dying. You're 68 or 75 or 82. And that age is supposed to feel like that age. The sooner you know what that means, the sooner you can stop panicking about pickle jars and start living like the healthy person you actually are. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. I'll see you next week.